So now I've got some things here that we can say to the enemy when he comes around. And I've got 8 points, so it'll take us the rest of the evening. I estimate maybe by midnight we'll be done. Would you still be here? These are things that God intends for us to know and to feel about ourselves. Feelings are important, and He wants us to feel these points. The first one, of course, is we're in God's image. Only us in all creation are in God's image. We don't even know what that means. Does anybody know what God's image means? Sounds good though, doesn't it? And since God said it, we've got to believe it. We are God's masterpiece. I don't care how you feel, you're God's masterpiece. On your lowest days, you are God's masterpiece. He put a lot into making you. Now, notice what He did. In my case, He went back into the womb to try and take away from me every good feeling that I would have about myself. Now, I learned how to work with people to take this second step into freedom, and I learned that I could go back in my memories and know that Jesus was there and ask Jesus to take this heavy load. He says, that all of you who are carrying heavy loads, He came to set us free. And then I could work on the habit. See, we have roots and we have habits. Well, I'll tell you how I started work on my habit. I looked in the mirror and I said, yuck. That was my ordinary reaction. That was my habit. But somebody said, push it. Look in the mirror and tell yourself the truth. So I looked in the mirror and I said, I call myself Chuck. You like to call me Charles. That's okay. I said, Chuck, I love you. Now I had to wink. After a while, I got over the winks, but I'm telling myself something new and developing a new habit. And I'm here to tell you it worked. It's a wonderful thing to be able to look at myself and say, because of what God has said about you, because of what Jesus has done, you're okay. And I can love you. And self-love is at the root of this whole thing. So we're created in God's image. First point. Second point is He chose us a long time back. In Ephesians 1, it says He chose us before He made the world. How long ago was that? Now you can think of couple after couple, all the way down through the ages, doing God's will, and they finally get to you, and your parents did God's will to bring you into existence. This wasn't by accident. My conception was not by accident. I was supposed to be a little older than I am. No, a little younger than I am. I was supposed to be conceived after they were married rather than before they were married. But I was planned by God, even though not by them. And the same is true of each one of you. You might have been planned by your parents as well as by God, or you might be like me, planned by God but not by your parents. But He says He chose me before He made the world. Interesting, huh? A third thing, really fascinating. We alone in all creation can, with God, create new beings. Those kids that are running around in your house, You created them. They're brand new beings that will live for eternity. They're not retreads. They're brand new. My wife and I have the privilege of having 15 grandkids because one of our daughters got carried away. We told her what caused it, but she didn't listen. She has 8. And every single one of them is in their parents' image, but also in God's image. And they're wonderful kids, say we unbiasedly. But again, they're brand new beings, and we get to do that. See, only God and us can create new beings. This is another place where Satan's jealous. He's sterile. He can't create things. He can only mess them up. And again, his plan is to mess us up as best he can. A fourth thing, only we have been redeemed. See, the angels rebelled, Satan rebelled. What did God do to bring them back? Can you think of anything? Here's this whole bunch of angels that turn against him and follow Satan. Did he do anything to bring them back? Interesting, huh? But what did he do to bring us back? This speaks to me of value. You work with the ones you value to bring them back. This is what God has done. And you are so valuable to God that he's brought you back. And you've responded rightly. You've come to him. Now he wants you, if you haven't already, he wants you to take that second step and get rid of the garbage that you're carrying. See, a lot of us we're wonderfully saved, but we got this big load of stuff on our backs. Stuff that often comes from childhood. Some of us were abused. Some of us were genuinely not wanted. We were seen as intruders. All these kinds of things. Some of us are deeply into fear, shame, these kinds of things. And Jesus wants you to work with him to give him this stuff. He's like a cosmic garbage collector. See, all of that garbage stuff that's tearing us down, and all of those voices that say you're worthless, you're no good, kind of thing. He's saying, give those to me. And when he takes them, then we get to go free. Now, it's kind of interesting. You look in the New Testament, there's not much about how you get to be saved, but there's an awful lot about how you get to be free. And in Jesus' ministry, he hardly ever talked about that first step, that salvation step. When were the disciples converted? Does anybody know? See, we don't see that kind of thing. But when did they get free? When were they finally able to dump their stuff on Jesus and get the freedom that they needed to do the ministry that Jesus wanted them to do? See, that's that second step. It's a very important step for us. And we do something called inner healing to try and get at that stuff that's festering inside us that won't go away until we meet Jesus in the problems and give the problems to Jesus. See, he enables us to go back in our memories. Now, the memory people tell us something else that's very interesting. They say we have what they call a semantic memory, and this is word-based. It's based on the words that we hear. And what we're doing now is we're talking about stuff, and so this all will get saved in our semantic memory. But they also tell us that we have an episodic memory. And the episodic memory is picture-based. They tell us that all the good things that happen in our life, we store them in episodic memory. We store them in pictures. And all the bad things that happen in our lives, we store them in pictures. Now, one of the challenges to those of us in inner healing is, how do you get things fixed? How do we get the bad pictures fixed? Well, you can't fix a picture with words. You can only fix a picture with another picture. And there's one picture that heals all. And we do this over and over again. We say, okay, let's go back into your memories. Let's go back to conception and take authority over it. Let's go back to childhood and all of the good things that have happened. Would you invite Jesus to experience them with you? And all of the bad things, would you invite Jesus to take those bad things? The people that have hurt you, can we just dump them on Jesus? He says, give them to me. Come to me, all of you who are tired from carrying heavy loads, and I'll give you rest or freedom. We can do that if we use another picture, that picture of Jesus with us in that thing. Now, people say, well, Jesus was there, but I was abused anyway. Well, give it to Jesus. He says he'll take it. He also says he'll punish whoever hurt you. And that's a real good deal. Probably a lot of us have had people that have hurt us and we can't get back at them. What's the answer? The one who can get back at him is Jesus. And so we give up our right to revenge. See, there's a definition of forgiveness. We give up our right to revenge, and Jesus takes it, and we get to go free. And we get to be in the position that he created Adam and Eve to be in, back in second place in the universe. See, Jesus' whole ministry was a matter of taking people away from Satan, bringing them to God, planting his kingdom in the middle of Satan's kingdom, and defeating him one by one. Only we have been redeemed. Only we have been given the Holy Spirit. Now there's a great one. Would you have given those disciples the Holy Spirit? Who are those disciples? You know, they were really good at making mistakes. They had some kind of a gifting, I think, making mistakes. If there's anything that you could do wrong, they did it. But Jesus saw something in them that led him to be willing to invest in them, giving them the same Holy Spirit that had empowered him. See, Jesus never did anything on earth under the power of his deity. He never did any mighty works before his baptism. But at his baptism, the Holy Spirit came on him, and he did his mighty works under the power and authority of the Holy Spirit, not under his own deity. And then he gets to the end of his life, he says to his disciples, now I'm going to give you the gift that I promised you. And that gift turned out to be the Holy Spirit. So he gives them the Holy Spirit and trusts them with his kingdom. That's what it's all about. So even we, only we have been given the Holy Spirit. A sixth thing, only we have been adopted into his family. There's some interesting verses in Romans and again in Galatians that say that we get to inherit with Jesus. It's as if Jesus is our big brother and he and we get to inherit the kingdom. We're right in there as family members. Not a single one of us is an orphan in God's family or in God's universe.